I need to do something over here.
You sure you're on? You're switched?
Yeah, I'm on. Okay, first of all, I want to thank Cahill and Deline for that song, because that song says it all. Thank you so much. Very much. So the title of the message this morning is Enough Suffering Already. Enough suffering already. Now, all suffering, we got it, we're on. I'm on, you're on, we're on, and we're together. All suffering is designed for one thing: to complete the pain and discover a strength you didn't even know you had before you went through the suffering. We've all had pain in our lives. Everyone has had pain in our lives. And a pain can be processed and facilitated through the mind by first accepting the pain, by knowing it's there, for healing the anger underneath the pain, and then letting go, forgiving ourselves and whoever else we need to forgive, and then just releasing it. We all deal with that all the time. You've heard me say to grieve well is to live well, because there is some big part of life in us, for us, and it helps us, called grief. Now in the Bible, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of the Bible about suffering. In Romans chapter 8 it says this: the suffering of this present day, the suffering of this present time, the sufferings, plural, of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in you. You know what the word glory means? It means accomplishment. It means freedom. It comes from the ancient Aramaic and Greek, which means freedom in command and accomplishment. Holding on to suffering is, you know why we hold on to suffering? Because we tell ourselves we didn't create it. Something out there created it. There is cause. I am the cause of what I'm saying and what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, what I'm hearing, what I'm sensing. The effect is out there. When we start thinking the effect out there is the cause of our suffering, something somebody said, I was abused, I was hurt, I was betrayed, whatever it is, they're the cause of my suffering. Maybe at the original time, but when we keep attacking ourselves with the negativity and the pain of it, we wind up suffering a long time after the event. I was born into Irish Catholicism. And Irish Catholicism was steeped in, you know that song? Gave up the shame, the blame. It was, I remember Father Flanagan. You know, to be suffering in the world is the most beautiful thing you can do for Jesus. I think to go through suffering as a good Catholic boy or girl and suffer for the people that are suffering and take their suffering on you, and after you die, there's a chance that you'll go to heaven and be with Jesus, and then it stops. And I thought, oh man, it stops after I die and get to heaven? And then all the suffering that you caused by crucifying Jesus. And I just think, I wasn't even there. I didn't commit the crime. Why didn't they doing the time already? No. So, now, suffering it comes from the belief that we don't cause it. And when we know we cause it, we can uncause it and create something new and get out of our misery. Ernest Holmes said this in the Science of Mind textbook: no matter what our emotional storm, there's something hidden in our inner being that has never been violated. Underneath all of the personality, the ego, the high and low, good and bad, all of that stuff, underneath there is pure and perfect free spirit. And when our conscious mind is lined up with that spiritual us, life just works. Absolutely. Now, and you know, I want to describe suffering this way. It's holding on to the pain of a loss after it's already been lost. That's what it is. Now, Marc Nepo, wonderful man. Here's a man who had cancer of the head, dealing with a lot. They said, Mark, you're not going to live. He's a poet and philosopher. You're not going to live. And he decided not to suffer anymore. He decided to go within and really, really get to what's going on with him. And he wrote some wonderful, wonderful books. And here's what he said. If peace comes from seeing the whole, then misery stems from a loss of perspective. If we don't get peace of mind right, none of the rest of our lives is going to be right. Peace of mind is underneath joy. It's underneath high self-esteem. It's underneath all the good things. Peace of mind. All the great religions teach. Be at peace. Peace of mind. Stop hating. Stop hating yourself and other people. Stop it. Stop it. He goes on to say something very, very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. He said this. In actuality, misery is a moment of suffering allowed to become everything. When we keep the pain alive, it smolders and bleeds into every part of our lives. Our relationships, our finances, our physical health. I mean, doctors in the medical profession and medical science now proves that people who suffer get more suffering, and it even shows up in the body. You know, think about this. If you got a headache, say you got a headache, you know, and physical pain, a headache, and you get a Band-Aid and you put it on your head, and then it still suffer, you put another Band-Aid on, pretty soon you've got a head full of Band-Aids, the suffering doesn't go away. You go and get an Advil or a pill or something that stops the suffering, it alleviates the symptoms. If you get a cut finger and hold an Advil against it, it doesn't work. If you hold an aspirin against it, it doesn't work. What you do is, what do you think you do? You get a suffering, you take one of the Band-Aids off your head and put it on your finger. Absolutely. Sometimes we get it like we make mistakes. It's like correct living is putting the Band-Aid where it belongs, and then letting the keloid heal over, and then the suffering lives in a much quieter place, and it doesn't intrude in our lives. I remember that song reminded me of In the Moment. When I was first married to my first past wife regression, I have one of those in my life. And so with my first wife, she used to say, don't let your son Brian ride with Greg on that bicycle. Brian was 6, Greg was 9, and they used to ride all around the neighborhood. Brian would sit on the crossbar, you know, and like he was learning how to do the bicycle. It was great. And it went on for like months, and then one day they're out there playing, and there was a scream, and I ran out, and there was Brian. He said, "Oh, it's hurt." Now this was physical. That's called pain. Pain is necessary. Suffering is optional. Optional. Absolutely. So he's in pain, and I was doing the best I could do. I just picked him up and I held him, and I said, "Greg, it's all right. It's okay," you know. And then I said, "Brian, it's okay. I know it hurts. I know it hurts. And what I want you to do is try to walk. Maybe my intention was try to walk it off. Try to walk." And he said, "I can't walk, Daddy. I can't walk, Daddy. I can't walk, Daddy." And I said, "Well, just keep trying to walk." And my wife ran out and she said, "Leave my son alone." You know, as it took 2 to have him, right? I mean, he's so anyway. So I finally said, you know, let's take him into the emergency ward. Hospital. Anyway, his leg was broken. And God, when I got this feedback when I got home, "You try to make my son walk on a broken leg? How, you're so cruel. You're the cruelest man I've ever," you know. Now I felt really guilty about that. I tried to cover it up by saying I was doing the best I could, but I really felt guilty. And I was suffering with the guilt of it. And I suffered for a long time with the guilt of it. And finally, I resolved it when I realized I did the best I could in those circumstances, and it was all right. And my wife at that time was doing what was going on for her. It was nobody's fault, nobody's shame, nobody's blame, faultless. When we have fault-free relationships, fault-free and guilt-free relationships, they flourish, and we're free, and everybody in the relationship is free. Now, as I was saying, if you suffer for something, it bleeds into every area in your life, your relationships, your health, your prosperity, all of it. Leonardo da Vinci said something I love. He said, the greatest deception we suffer is from our own opinions. You know, when we cherish our opinions, I had this opinion about how it was and how the situation was with my son. And one of the things she would say, everybody says, they all say, you're not a good father. Everything I see on television, it said, they say you're not a good father. And I started thinking, think about this. Who are they anyway? Are they the bunch you saw down at the beach the other day? Are they the people you saw at Costco? Who are they? When we try to get protection for ourselves, they all say, everyone says, no, everybody's doing what they're doing, and they is the they that you create inside of you. They ain't no they. They is you, and you is they. So who cares what they say, because what you say is what they say, and if you say good stuff, they're saying good stuff, because there's no they, it's all in you. That should go in a book. Now, Biron Katie, wonderful, wonderful lady, she writes about loving what is, loving life the way that it is, said this: as long as you think the cause of your problem is out there, as long as you think that anyone or anything is responsible for your suffering, your situation is hopeless. Hopeless. If I blame it on, if somebody else did it to me, somebody else has got to undo it to me. If I know that I am cause, not to blame, that I am cause for the suffering, I can get it healed. Now, I wrote this for myself. Brian, it's impossible to suffer without making somebody else pay for it. Everybody who's suffering is angry, and they're blaming somebody out there. And it keeps going on, and some people look like a ball of suffering going someplace to happen and lay their suffering on somebody else, because the ego says, if you can make somebody else suffer for your suffering, you'll get even and you'll be healed, and it absolutely doesn't work. Biron said this, I love this. It means that you are forever in the role of the victim, that you are suffering in paradise. Suffering is caused by telling yourself the same painful story over and over and over again. When you stop the story, the suffering stops. I remember one time seeing a movie, and there were two lovers on a beach. They were in paradise. And she's laying there and she's looking at the seagulls and the birds and the cormorants and the dolphins in the ocean, and she's thinking, this is the most beautiful day of my life. This is so wonderful. This is absolutely marvelous. What a beautiful life. I'm so thankful to whatever it is that created all of this, because this is beyond all religion and all imagination. This is pure love, the love of God, and she's really enjoying it. He's sitting over there in the blanket, you know. I shouldn't have taken this vacation. It's going to cost me 2 weeks off work. I need to make the money. And besides, there's a young guy in the company, and he's liable to take over. And what if I get back? Now, this is suffering. She's in paradise. He's in hell. And when I get back, what if my job's gone? What if this? What if that? And look, two people in the same outside environment and having two different effects, because they're causing their lives in a different way. Money isn't going to do it. The perfect body isn't going to do it. The perfect relationship isn't going to do it. What you do it happens through you, no matter what the condition is. And then when we get at peace with that, then things start to come into our lives easily. Absolutely. Dr. Dave, now, when we find the meaning in the suffering, we found our lives. Dr. David Viscott said something I love, who was a wonderful friend and amazing psychiatrist. When we find the meaning in the suffering, we start to behave differently. And when we behave differently, we have different results in our lives. There's no change in anything without action and a new behavior. Some people are sitting there, I'm just praying to God that things get get better, and I'm praying. Please stop using God for an excuse for your laziness and not being willing to take action. God, I know, please, you can sit there and pray, like they say in Hinduism, pray really strong, but road to shore. Now, absolutely. David Biscott said this, and I love it. He said, no one suffers like the proud because they have to pretend they were not hurt. It doesn't hurt. Nothing you say hurts me. And inside because we're afraid or ashamed or feel guilty to express, if you can express your feelings to the person who hurt you, and the moment that they hurt you without anger, you've delivered the suffering. It's gone. It's when we hold it and pretend like it doesn't hurt. The people that do this, their joy becomes brittle. No one suffers more bitter than the controlling people, for they suffer in isolation. They're alone. That's their biggest, controlling people their biggest fear is I'm going to be alone. My anger and my trying to manipulate people is going to make me alone, and then they do it more and more, and then they wind up alone and isolated. Then, I love this one. No one suffers more desperately than the dependent people, for they cannot let go. Please love me. Please take care of me. My mom's gone, and my dad's gone, and I'm now 95 years old. I'm all alone. Please take care of me. Oh man, God will take care of you, and if you take care of yourself and take care of others, they will take care of you. I just love it. More desperately, I love it. Now, if your prayers don't include action, they're not prayers. They're complaints. If your prayers do not include some action, they're not prayers, they're complaints. And complaints are suffering. There's people who complain all the time. When I was about 12 years old, I was even wanting to be a little minister then. I used to love to go and help people. I had a wonderful relationship with older people, 80, 90 years old. And there was this woman, a little Jewish woman, her name is Mrs. Nagel. She lived in the barrios where we had these little houses, and two cars couldn't pass each other. We used to have to pull in the driveway to get out of there. It was and we lived in the last house on the other side of the tracks. No, it was actually on the other side of that. But anyway, so Mrs. Nagel, I would go over and see her. There's something about her that attracted me. But I never knew how she would be from one moment to the next. I'd go over and I'd say, hi, Mrs. Nagel, how are you doing today? I'm not doing any good. I don't want you around me anyway. I'm not doing very good. Like, this happened and that happens, and my sprinkler broke, and she'd be very dominant and very controlling, and I don't think you can fix it anyway. You might try, but you're not going to be able to fix it. Just really controlling. Then I think the next day I'd come over and see her and say, hi, Mrs. Nagel, how you doing? Oh, isn't it a pity? Isn't it a pity? Did you read the newspaper? Did you read the newspaper that a whole bunch of people died in an accident? It's in the Mirror News, Brian. There's a terrible picture of please hear me. Newspapers, and television is designed because, please hear me, they know that we are fascinated with fear, terror, and loss. Look at all the movies. There's no script without fear, terror, and loss, and a hero, right? We all need a hero. And we must become our own. And she, I don't know what to do. I'm afraid I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to lose my house, and I'm not going to be able to pay my taxes. She would become from a controlling person to dependent person. Then she'd become a competitive person. And I'd go next day, how are you doing, Mrs. Nagel? I'm doing fine. I've got the prettiest house on the block. I've got the prettiest house. This is the prettiest house. And I'm Jewish, and Jewish is the best religion. I don't know why you have to be a Catholic. Why don't you become Jewish? Come to temple with me. And I said, when are you going to temple? Well, I haven't been in years. I'm Jewish, but I haven't been to temple in years. Yeah, absolutely. Based on religion. Anyway, so I decided, I said, Mrs. Nagel, do you ever get off the block? Do you ever go anywhere? And she says, no. She said, sometimes people bring me food, and sometimes I'll walk to the market, but I'm very careful when I walk the market and all like that. And I said, have you ever been down the riverbed? Now, she's probably about 85 maybe, and she just had this dour look. And she says, no, you're always going down the riverbed. What do you do down the riverbed? And I said, there's quail down there. I hunt quail with a slingshot. And there's beautiful flowers. And she said, flowers? And I said, oh, yeah. Well, I have flowers that grow right next to where the water's running, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I'd really love you to come with me. And she says, really? Can I walk that far? And I said, even if I have to, I'd love to help you walk. I'd like to help you. You help people get to where they really want to go and your life works. There's nothing that feels better than emancipating, than inspiring, than being good to other people. That's where the good stuff comes from. The people who give a lot, get a lot in every area of their life. So she decides to go with me, and what I notice is she's got a sprint in her step. She's not walking. She went we used to walk like to this, like, how much further is it? I can't wait to get to it. We got there and we looked, and there was some kind of wild roses and some azalea-type flowers and some little white, they were like a pansy kind of flower, different colors. And she looks, and I'll never forget her face when she looked up. She said, Brian, this is beautiful. The flowers are beautiful. You're beautiful. The whole world is beautiful. It's really beautiful. Absolutely. That's why I love the song. Everything is beautiful. That song, it reminds me of Mrs. Nagel. When we went back to her house, it was really amazing. I used to go in her house and I used to have to take long breaths. That's why I'm good at breath hold diving today. Long breath and hold my breath because it smelled really old and just terrible in there. But you know what? A week after that event, she cleaned up her house and she showed me that her house was cleaned, and she bought a lawnmower from Sears. No, actually, the first one she bought from Sears Roebuck, but she bought another used one, a newer one. There was nothing, to take away somebody else's suffering really removes it from our own life. Absolutely. We've got to do what it takes to get there. Got to do what it takes to get there. Ernest Holmes said this, life is not something to be endured. It is to be lived in joy, in the fullness of joy without limit. Peace of mind is the source of joy, the source of power, the source of love, the source of happiness, the source of giving. Now, and it's easy, peace of mind is easy when we decide to give up suffering. I wrote this down for myself. Peace of mind is the source of joy, and good intentions make it easy not to suffer, and you realize when you don't suffer that you are a stronger person than you ever thought you could be. When we suffer, we believe we are weak, and we blame other people. When we absolutely let go of suffering and have peace of mind, I have a lot of joy in me. You notice that? I have a lot of joy in me, but I'm also having peace of mind underneath the joy. If I didn't have peace of mind underneath the joy, there would be no joy. Put that one in the book too. Now, Daniel Goldman, who's a wonderful man, and he wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence. Do you know there are people, well, check this out. There are people with DDs, double Ds, PhDs, incredible education, and they have no experience. When I had a contracting business, I didn't look for people with double D's, education and all that. I'm not taking anything away from education. Absolutely, we all need that. But I look for people with experience. And your experience is what gives you the education, which means to come from within out, learning, knowing that you know is already there. That's why kids in kindergarten, when they get the right answer, and you tell them it's the right answer, they already know it's the right answer. Did you know that? We all know what's right and wrong. Daniel wrote this in Emotional Intelligence. In any day of the year, the denominator of kindness will be greater than the numerator of cruelty. You could watch a television, you can go home and watch television and see death and destruction and floods and hurricanes. You can see all of that, and that is one scrillionth of what's happening. Scrillionth is a new number. It's a way of billion now. No, billion's not a big, a scrillionth. And after that, there's a killion. And after that, it's a bazillion. And that's when you own it all. Now, but there's one little skillion of suffering on the whole planet, and 99 skrillion are not suffering. But then you turn on another channel, you say, aloha, Hawaii, everybody welcome to Hawaii, and travel shows and all that. You get it's all there for you. It always has been there. The good, the bad, the ugly, the powerful, the loving, the adventure, the excitement, the aliveness, and the joy, it's all available. In any day of the year, the denominator of kindness will be greater than the numerator of suffering. Peace of mind is the most potent and the most motivating feeling and force for good that there is in the universe. We'll close with a story. There's a lady I know, and she shared it with me many years ago. She says, I just can't call my mother anymore. My mother is divorced. She lives alone. She had a boyfriend. That worked out for a while. And she gave that up. Didn't work. And she lives alone. And all she does is lives alone. And I call her and I say, hi, Mom, how are you doing? And she gives me her complaints about how terrible the weather is, about how terrible she feels, about how terrible everything is, and about how one day I called. This was the determining factor. One day I called and I said, how are you doing, Mom? And Mom says, well, not very good. And I know, I've noticed you don't call as much as you used to. She let go of the guilt. She let go of the duty, the obligation, and the suffering. And she says, it's as though the Spirit in me spoke to my mother. And I said, Mom, do you want to know why I don't come over as much as I used to? Are you willing to listen to it? And she said, of course. Mom, you are so negative, you're so down, you're so critical, you're so blaming me for everything in your life, and now that's why I don't come over as much. You're not a lot of fun to be with. Please hear me. When you're negative, don't blame other people if you're not a lot of peace and fun to be with. And so her mother said, well, what do you want me to do? And she said, Mom, hang on. Here's what I want you to do. What do you want me to do? I want you to get a life. What do you mean, get a life? The life you're living, Mom, is no life. I remember when you did nails. You were so excited when you had your own chair and did people's nails, and you were so full of life. What if you try to do that again? Well, I've already done that. Please hear me. Sometimes doing the same thing that you love to do, and you come back to do the same thing, even though it may look like less, is more. It's not always this way. Sometimes it's back there. Moving backwards is absolute moving forward. So she agreed. She says, well, I'll try at the nail shop. They'll probably take me on for 1 day a week or 2 days a week. She started off with 1 day a week. She asked for 2 days a week. She's working 5 days a week, and everything changes. Everything changes. When you are doing the thing you love, and the thing you love is doing through you, life just works. It works like that for you, for me, and for all of us. So what I want you to do is be easy on yourself. Let go of the blame. Let go of the shame, let go of the guilt, and let go of the suffering. Suffering never fed a starving child. Suffering never won a war. Suffering never helps anybody. It's the suffering that get angry and are the cause of the displacement and the disconnection in the world. When you become a force for good, which you are, the power of God is literally inside of you, the power of God. Remember when they asked Jesus, they said, where is God? And Jesus said, lo, not here, lo, not there. The kingdom of God is within you. It's within you and within me, and we're all equal, we're all loving, we're all good. And so stop attacking yourself, except when it's with love. I love you, I support you, I'm in it with you, and so it is. Thank you.